Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm really glad they put the data panel right after lunch. It's like a rousing topic to get everybody out of their food comas. Before we get started, I do want to say, again, we're trying to keep this super engaging. Data is a very nebulous topic. Like one of my mentors says there's things in life called apple pie positions, which are things that people say, like, we need to be better at treating our customers. And it's like, you can't really disagree with it, and you feel like it's right. And if you push back and try to ask for emphasis on how should we be treating our customers, what should we be doing better, you kind of seem like the person in the room that is being annoying. And data is one of those things where it's like, we should have more data. And I haven't met anybody who says, no, we shouldn't have more data. No, we should always be having more data about our customers. But what we're going to try to do here is help you bridge the gap between having data and using data and attempting to make it your superpower. So before we get rolling here, I just would ask our esteemed panelists to just quickly introduce yourselves, maybe talk about the brand you're with, and I think I put this in the pre-show notes, but what is different or unique about your concept?
Let me see if yes, it's working. Hello, I'm Jill Marchick. I'm with Applebee's, and I've been working at Applebee's for about 2.5 years. My background is a mixture of retail, consumer packaged goods, and a little bit of sports. And what's unique or different about our brand is when our guests talk about us, it's really all about the comfort. We're comfort food. We're a place that's their neighborhood. And the words they use to describe us is like we're a warm blanket. You feel comfortable. You can go in any way you want, and we have something for everybody in the family.
Hi, I'm Doug Willmarth. I'm with MOOYAH Burgers, Fries, and Shakes. We're a just shy of a 100-unit chain based in Plano, Texas, and you can imagine by the name what we sell. We believe that we have the very best tasting cheeseburger in America, and we believe that because we start with the freshest ingredients possible, including certified Angus beef, which is better beef than most steakhouses have. We do things by hand in a handcrafted way, but the superpower really is that we let our guests customize it any way they want. So we have choices in buns, choices in proteins, choices in cheese, choices in sauce, house-made from scratch toppings. We do our French fries in a 24-hour process that are all hand punched, and we use really high-fat ice cream to make the best tasting shakes you ever have from premium toppings that you get to choose and mix yourself. So it's that blend of great ingredients kind of done the hard way, but customized for you that we believe makes us the best tasting cheeseburger around.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Andersen. I'm the president of the Great Greek. We're about 55 restaurants, the fastest growing Mediterranean franchise brand in the world at this point. What makes us different, we're really a fine, fast, casual brand. We're selling really healthy food, made scratch, made to order, served on a real plate, real fork, real knife in our restaurant. People do not have to sacrifice great taste to eat healthy, and that's what makes us different overall.
My name's Yaron Goldman. I'm with the Ribbon Chop House, which is a Mountain West steak chain based out of Bozeman, Montana. I'm the smallest guy here. I only have 15 units, but we do punch above our weight. Our AUVs are a little over $5 million. We do have some licensees, and we are beginning franchising. Just signed a couple franchisees in Utah, so we're very excited about that. And our approach is a little different than many in here. We try to stay in markets to 50 to 100,000 people, and we try to be the neighborhood restaurant and community restaurant. We sell everything from $70 Wagyu steaks to $15 chicken tenders. So it's somewhere you can bring your entire family and feel very comfortable, but you also go out for a really nice anniversary or birthday dinner and feel very special. So just happy to be here, and thank you.
That's great. And for reference, I'm Abhinav Kapur, co-founder and CEO of a company called Bikky. We're a customer data platform for restaurants. We basically pull together all your in-store and off-premise data. So not just loyalty program, but think about all the credit card data of your guests in-store. And I'm getting a phone call. Sorry, Mom. But the goal is to help you measure the incrementality of every marketing, menu, or operational decision instead of just looking at, oh, sales went up, sales went down, trying to figure out the why beneath the sales. I hope one thing you'll take away from our panel here is the incredible diversity of folks we have here, not just in roles, but also in concepts and geography. I think that's really interesting, and I think it's a good starter point for us. I would love to actually start with Jill. What does having data as a superpower actually mean to you?
That's a great question. For me, data as a superpower is, I'm going to take it kind of more personal, is that it's about telling a story through data. So I lead insights and analytics, and that's kind of like, oh my gosh, boring numbers, right, normally? But what I try to do, and I have my team do, is really tell the story and then make it actionable for our franchisees as well as our corporate employees as well. So we're only 31 franchisees, so they're very engaged and they're very data literate, and they own other types of very large scale franchises. So what we use data for is multiple ways. One of the things that is really critical today as guest behavior is changing faster and faster. After the pandemic, now we have the economic pressures, and it's super important for us to understand our guest behavior. One of the ways that we understand our guest behavior is with our partnership with MasterCard. They have over 20 million of our transactions, so we're able to really understand the buying behavior of our guests when they're at Applebee's, but when they go to other restaurants, so we can dissect other casual dining, full service restaurants, fast food, and then also look at where else are they spending money. So then we can understand holistically how to target them, so it helps us really figure out what our strategy is moving forward from a marketing perspective, but also we built our strategy of one of the key learnings was how do we increase visitation one more time with our low frequency guests. So that is a key superpower, I think, because it's like bringing data to life.
Yeah, that's great. And I think one thing that you mentioned there is, one, there's a lot that Applebee's does that is probably very sophisticated and resource intensive that maybe other brands don't have access to. But a couple words that Jill mentioned there, actionability and then driving one more visit. And I think that is something that probably every concept can relate to. I want to take it to the other end of the spectrum. I won't say least sophisticated Yaron, but I will say the smallest brand, at least as you mentioned here. Same question, data as a superpower. How do you think about it? What does it mean for you and your concept?
Yeah, so on the other side of the spectrum from Jill, we obviously use data as well, but we don't have all the resources. So for us, in our concept, we use it for real estate, for instance. We don't have enough information to have a full-out real estate model, but we can use the data we do have to try to pin down where we want to open our next few units. And at this stage, and many of you probably know this, you can't really miss on real estate when it's your 16th or 17th or 18th unit. You really have to nail it. So for us, we use the data we have, and we take guest intercepts that we get from our third-party provider. We use credit card details. We also do a lot of focus groups and kind of low-tech data, which still is very helpful. We do focus groups and customer panels and let people tell us what they're thinking. And from that standpoint, it's been very powerful for us. And we just, we're opening 3 new restaurants this year, which for us is a pretty big deal. And we use the data that we have from our other restaurants to try to pinpoint what the best location would be, try to find the best development partner, and to us, that's the best way we can use it. So again, even in a small company like ours, it's still very important to us.
That's great. And I think, so both Jill and Yaron have talked about really good ways to make data actionable. I want to take it to the other end of the spectrum and toss it to Doug. He's smiling here because I told him he's our curmudgeon on the panel. But Doug, you've been in the business for, I won't age you, but you've been in the business for a long. Yeah. Maybe talk about the flip side of actionability and what actually in your time in the business has held restaurants back from actually using data effectively. Because I think like every conversation we have is, all this data is great, what do I do with it? How do I make it actionable? Why do people still ask that question? What's been holding us back?
And thanks for asking that question. And I don't know that I'm going to be a curmudgeon, but I've been involved primarily from the marketing side of things for about 20 years, where the promise of what data can do has been out there. And it's not necessarily, really actionability is the key question. And so, there's always been this great potential. And, from a potential standpoint, it's been out there for a long time that we'll be able to see, what's happening across our customer universe. We'll be able to segment one-on-one messaging, and we'll be able to take these people and speak to them very specifically because of their experience in our restaurant and what they do at other restaurants. And therefore, we'll message them in a way that'll get one more visit, and it's awesome. And the reality is doing that with reliability has just been elusive. And if you're like us, where you have a small but mighty team, I think we punch above our weight, but we have, 5 people on the marketing team, and that includes data analysts, and the ability for us to then go through with a 5 million person database and be able to actionably target segments in a meaningful way is still problematic, right? And so, we do have access, and we have moments and visions where, hey, we're able to activate on this, whether it's real estate or whether it's, using credit card data within that sphere to probably try to reach some people with a relevant message on frequency or tap into some loyalty guests and something. But what's been missing is making it easy for you to activate across the data you have in one single, CDP, and that's really been the brass ring that's been out there for a long, long time.
Yeah. So he just blamed me, basically.
We just pause for a second to applaud that.
We can give a shout.
Thank you, Rev. I
Yeah.
appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's from a marketing standpoint, there's lots of these moments, right? You even think about, some of the platforms we have and how the platforms are learning and they know things about your customer that you really can't anticipate. So we're getting there, but the actionability is always problematic.
Right. So that's like, to clarify, it's a tooling problem specifically. Like the products haven't been there to actually make it easy for you to action on the data, take advantage of.
Well, and a bandwidth problem
bandwidth
in terms of, our ability to process. And, maybe AI is going to be the answer. Maybe the advance in, the computing power and the analytics and the ability for you to make some rules and have those executed at a higher level. But that's still, something that's out there. There's a different level that we need to get to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And turning over to Bob here. So you're, doubling the business or so in the next year, or recently have doubled?
Yeah, we're doubling every year.
That's
so
incredible.
If I sat here last year, we were about 35 million. Today, we're trending about 80 million.
That's incredible. And if you think about actually scaling the brand, probably keeping up with the pace of the business is a challenge in and of itself. What's the data that you are actually looking at to inform whether or not you're scaling appropriately, whether or not guests are having the right experience? Maybe talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'd first off start by saying data is just overwhelming. It overwhelms us, growing so fast. And I find myself, talking with our teams and trying to root out bias of the data, right? A lot of people want to use the data to make an opinion they might have. So I think that's a really important point as you start harnessing your data. It's taking that data and turning it into insights. And the way the industry is right now, it's so siloed. The data for a small company is so siloed, it's hard to bring it all together. So we have some things that we use. The number one platform that we use is Guest Insights to make sure we're really understanding what's happening at the restaurants that we're opening, that we're consistently delivering our experience across the board. Where we are, we're letting people know that they're doing a great job. Where they're not, we're making sure that we follow up with it. And that's one of the main successes of our brand. The other thing I try to keep my eye on, and when you're growing fast, in site selection, for an example, like there's a clear path of what's a great restaurant area and site for us, but that's only in the sites that we're in. Okay, what it fails to tell us is there's some great sites out there that we're not in that has maybe a different makeup. So, for our brand, we're trying to be cognizant of that too. We still want to have our eye on the data, what works, but we still want to be able to make smart decisions to explore different areas where there's gaps in the data. And as a small company growing fast, there's a lot of gaps in the data.
Yeah.
Because if I could just jump into
please,
something that Bob said, because one of the things that we've done at Applebee's over the last 8 months, we switched our partners for our customer satisfaction survey. And what we've started to do is, because to your point, there's so much data, what do you do with it all? Because we had our Google reviews, we had our Yelp reviews, we have our guest relations where you call in, the old-fashioned way, and then you've got the survey data. One of the goals when we switched to our new partnership was to bring all the tools together. So you're bringing in the survey data, you're bringing in guest relations, you're bringing in Google Yelp reviews and all of that. And we've developed this experience score. So it's one source of data at that particular restaurant, that restaurant in Overland, Kansas. And they can go and say, at that restaurant, here is what my guests say. It's the point of truth. And so you can look at it at the restaurant level, the area level, the district level, at the franchisee level, as well as a system-wide level. And that's been really helpful. So every morning, we expect our team members to go in, look at the scores, see how they're performing. And it's really has been game-changing and really fixing the overall experience.
Yeah, that's great. And then Bob, one thing I want to draw on what Jill just said was bringing it front and center for the teams. How are you actually, when you think about the customer experience data that you're bringing in, can you walk us through maybe a level deeper of how you are aligning your internal teams or the teams on the ground around using that data and being cognizant of it and making sure that they're not making the same mistakes or learning from it at least?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've been in this business for any amount of time, the customer experience is the most important thing that we do and deliver to grow our business. When we started looking at that, we identified all the different sources now that provide feedback, and almost every independent, third party, whatever it might be, is collecting feedback from our guests. So our first was to identify all those avenues, and I believe for our brand there's 11. So there's 11, and I would say 4 of them we were able to pull in. The other 11, the other 7, we had to go work on, and how do we get that data and bring it in? So we have done that. We harness it. We bring it into one platform that gives us insights on what's happening, gives us a score, and it takes us from the brand to a region to a franchise group to a specific unit. And then we have a team who watches that. We watch the feedback, everything that comes in, how long it takes us to respond to it, what are the responses, how do we win back the customers, what percentage are we winning back. So it's pretty detailed. It's the most important thing we do.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then Yaron, go ahead, Doug, please.
No, I was just going to say, the topic of transforming data into superpower, really the answer is actionability.
Yeah.
And getting the insights is one thing, but getting it down to the front line is the other. And so I think part of the key to success for some of these things is how do you create that scorecard so it's available to the frontline troops, right? So really at the restaurant level, they're watching that, they have visibility to it, and they're managing themselves so that we aren't trying to do it from corporate. So if we make it a scorecard that's actionable, that's visible to the store, that they can then work on and say, hey, how are we making progress? How are we sharing what's happening in the guest experience in our store? And as a franchise concept, that's really important for us. That we can push that actionability down, then we have a much better chance of actually handling that in the moment, making meaningful changes so that the data's resulting in us being better operators.
Is there any magic to actually getting buy-in from franchisees around some of the stuff you're looking at from corporate and thinking about you're helping store owners effectively improve how they run their businesses? Is there any?
I think the magic is making it simple.
Yeah.
Right. You can drown. You can drown in data. You can drown trying to get one more source. If we activate well on one source, that's better than not activating on 11 sources.
Right.
So, it's about keeping it simple. How do we make sure that the information is relevant, that they can take action on it, but doing it in a very simplified way that they have access and can feel ownership and ability to change. That's going to be what transforms, at the restaurant level, right? Whether or not we at the corporate level can scan across and go, oh, they're doing bad, they're doing good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just going to weigh in here. One of the things that we find is very, very important is making that data public. So everyone sees everyone's result. So if you want to talk about buy-in, there's buy-in and competition. Yeah. There's competition for sure plays a big role.
Yeah.
Some people want to ascend to the top, and then there's a little embarrassment there for people at the bottom. Right. So make those public.
That's what my dad used to do with me and my sister. Like math, test, scores, everything. It didn't work too well for me, but still, I live with the shame still.
But the other thing, just to build off of what they just said, one of the things that we did is we were as we were setting up our customer experience program and the experience score, is we got buy-in from the field. So we went to our team members and got a group of people together and had them play with it, spend time with it, and give us feedback. And I think that's the only way you get buy-in. And then we also, to simplify the data, is that we put it all into an app and it shoots out every morning. Right. So it's just a few metrics. It's very easy to use, and to everyone's point, it has to be simple. Simple is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just add
yes,
on
please,
to that.
please.
So
yeah.
the other point on all the data, it can be overwhelming. And what I try to do is always figure out what are the determining factors to improve guest satisfaction. It's usually one or two things. Like in QSR, the number one driver of guest satisfaction is speed of service.
Right.
More than accuracy, which you may not think, but that's the data.
Interesting.
It's speed of service. And in our brand, it's how proper are the steaks cooked to the temperature requested. That is the number one driver of guest satisfaction. And if you can kind of pinpoint one or two things, this is what's going to move the needle, then people will pay attention and listen and have buy-in. But if you give them too much information, it's basically giving no information.
Right.
And that is really, I know everyone's saying the same thing on that, but it's like pinpointing, if you do X, you will get Y result, and see the outcomes, people get buy-in for the next idea you have or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I want to dig in actually on your concept, Yaron, a little bit, because you're doing something that I don't think is fairly common with a subscription loyalty program.
Yeah.
And I think you have a little bit more bandwidth to actually leverage a subscription loyalty program in your concept, given the service model. But maybe talk about a little bit how you're getting buy-in from your employees in understanding, one, what is the value of a subscription customer? And then two, what does the experience look like? How do you carry that forward into the actual experience when someone who is a member of the subscription loyalty program comes in for a meal?
Yeah, for sure. So we started a program, everything right now is data and AI and automation, and obviously that's wonderful for a lot of things. But I think in our society as a whole, we kind of missed that human touch and feel, and we decided to kind of take it back and just we have a normal loyalty program like many of you have. We run it through Toast, and it's very, frictionless. But we decided to do a subscription-based plan where people pay $50 a month to be a member of our program. And it was basically in middle of 21, where the biggest problem I think many of you may have if you're in casual dining at all is you couldn't get a table, right? Like people were on waits on Monday nights and Tuesday nights because so many restaurants were closed. And we were open 7 days a week. We didn't close any hours. We had our struggles, but we didn't close. And we just had all these people on waits, and we'd have these anecdotal stories of people giving $100 to the host or hostess, hey, can you get me a table? And this is in Gillette, Wyoming, not in Las Vegas, right? Which you understand, like, you hear the stories or you see a movie, but this is like Sheridan, Wyoming and Bozeman, Montana. You don't normally see it. So we talked about if maybe there's a market for this. So we have people pay $50 a month and they get special events, invitations, special events. We send them out steak knives when they sign up. We send them birthday notes, all handwritten, nothing automated. We have one person that her only job is to manage these royalty members, and there are thousands of them now. And for our business, that's a pretty nice revenue source. And she is, if they have a special event, they call her and like, hey, I need to book a special party for my mother, or it's my wife's birthday, can you do something special? And of course you could call the restaurant to do it, but having this like concierge service, people really, really like it. And they love when we send them a Christmas card or holiday card and it's handwritten, and they know Marisa, and that's who does it, and that's their person. And for us, it's pretty cool. And again, but tying it to data, it was getting the feedback in the restaurants, which is also a form of data. Obviously there's big data and mega data, but there's also just the feedback you get, and no one knows what's going on in your restaurants more than the frontline people. And part of our program is if you go in, you don't have a reservation, you get to skip the line. So you're first in line if you're a royalty member. So those are some of the benefits of being a member, and you get other things as well. But that really kind of made it exciting, and we limited it. So we said you can only sell so many per location based on seating. We have a whole matrix. So when we're sold out, then it's really exclusive, right? So if Bob walks in and is like, he gets a table and I don't, I'm like, what does he get? And they're like, oh, you can join this, but you gotta get on the wait list. And it became like an exciting thing for us. So we want to take it to the next level, which is having people be a part of it, but not have the wait list part, because you can only have so many people that can be a part of that. But anyway, that's how we did it.
That's
pretty
great.
Exciting.
So I think like one of the common themes that's coming across here obviously is engaging your frontline teams and engaging your franchisees to the extent that you have them, which is awesome. Doug, can you talk about from a loyalty program data standpoint specifically? I think y'all operate a more traditional loyalty program with one of the bigger providers. Can you talk about a high leverage way in which you've used data beyond maybe just segmentation and marketing to the extent that you've done it?
I think most people, believe that a loyalty program is not only a way for you to engage your best guests, but, not only create a conversation, but for us from a business standpoint, it's how do we encourage frequency with that. And so, we've actually pushed a lot of stuff where we're trying to get, people in either through an e-club or through direct into the loyalty program, because then the loyalty program then serves as a database for us to power our digital advertising. We kind of doubled down on acquisition and awareness, driving people into the loyalty program with a free burger. So a very high value reward, but then we're activating on the back end to make sure that we get the value out of that. And the results that we've had for that is over the last couple of years, actually this last year, we've grown our percent of transactions involving the loyalty program by 3%. So, our goal is to try to get the loyalty transactions over the 25% mark. So we have this, very engaged group that we can, have conversations, dialogue with, but also give them, incentives and information that they want to know so that they'll be more, active with the brand. So that's kind of how we try to do that, which is sort of the top funnel for us is that program. And then, we do have, journeys and other things like that to try to, once people are in the program, to kind of try to get them engaged and get those visits up.
Yeah, that's great. Jill, from your standpoint, I think the three operators here all have much smaller concepts and have all done a really good job of talking about super tactical, high leverage ways of using data. Can you talk about how you actually move the needle with data at such a massive brand like Applebee's? What does that actually look like?
Well, I think the way we move the needle is by telling, a story with their data. And let me give you an example. Does anybody participate in Dollarita last October? Did anybody go to Applebee's for Dollarita? Okay, great, excellent, thank you. So how did we get there? So we started Dollarita in 2017, ended the program in 2019, decided in 22 or 23 we should bring it back again. But how do you get people, it's a lot of work, if you can believe this, it's too much traffic sometimes, and so how do you get everybody excited by it again, especially the team members in the restaurants, because it's a lot of work. So what we did is my team took the lead on developing a business case on what it did for the business. So looking at the attach, look at the product mix, looking at, what did it do for our guest behavior, and looking at all these aspects. And then we decided to re-concept test it again. Does America want Dollarita again? And if you saw our ad, that's what it was all about. America, you asked for it. That's our number one request we got, was to bring back the Dollarita. So we developed the business case to say, listen, here's what it's going to do for the overall business. Here's going to drive traffic. Here's how it's going to drive your comp sales. And guess what? There's a lot of food and beverage attached. When people come for Dollarita, they have a very large average check. So we were able to bring it back in October to success, but we also wanted to listen to the team members because they have to work really hard in getting this done. And so we got feedback from them. We did more training and making sure that they felt comfortable with it. And we did get great feedback. Anytime we do a promotion at Applebee's, we want to make sure it's not just getting the guest feedback, but it's also getting the team member feedback as well, and making sure that we're optimizing our performance for them as well. Because if you don't have happy team members, you don't have happy guests, as we all know. So it's critical to close the loop and all of that. And we were able to really showcase what it did for us and then communicate it back to our field as well.
That's great. So highlight here, people love cheap tequila. That's the headline, essentially. But I think
the other insight there is if you feed people liquor, they will spend more.
They will spend more.
They will spend a lot of money.
Well, I love
and they love their boneless wings when they're having a Dollarita.
Yeah. Well, and I think I love both the examples you just shared because it's leveraging the food, like your core menu, and leveraging your food to basically, one, get more data, but two, drive traffic, drive frequency, drive incrementality. And I think that's something that both your concepts have leveraged very well with the data and feedback that you have available to you. I want to come back to Bob here because I think one of the things that's very interesting about your brand's growth trajectory, and it's sort of tied up in this like higher level philosophy I have where, you think about the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, like as a business with Bikky, data didn't become I would say, commonplace in the industry until post-pandemic, when businesses were forced to go digital overnight. And we're sort of seeing that same trend around awareness around data carry through around speed of service and different service models and opening of non-traditional store formats. And I read something recently where your brand just launched 3 different non-traditional store formats. Can you talk to A, the differences between those 3 different formats, and B, what were you looking at that actually informed what format you chose and in what geographic location?
Wow, you got another hour?
We have 5 minutes before questions, so we'll cap it there, but yeah.
Good question. I do want to say one quick thing about,
Please, yeah.
about some of the data. We've said speed of service a couple of times, and you talked about changes since the pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, the whole business has turned upside down in many ways. We went from 70% on-premise to 70% off-premise.
Right.
And while speed of service on-premise is still the primary thing, off-premise is accuracy.
Interesting.
Okay, because when that meal gets to that house and they waited, they know they're waiting 30, 45 minutes. It better be right. You better have the tzatziki sauce. So there's a lot of splitting that data off now because it has changed. In terms of your question, 18 months ago, we were looking for ways to accelerate our growth. And, we saw real estate was getting more challenging. The development costs were getting more challenging. Off-premise was continuing to accelerate. On-premise was still growing for us, but it wasn't accelerating like the other parts of the business. And when you talk pre-pandemic and post, we used to, if any of you have been in this business long enough, we'd go look at a space and think, boy, how many seats can I get in this space? Today I go look at a space and think, what is the minimum amount of seats I can put in this space and it be most effective? Right? It's quite a different point of view. So it could be 14. So in that, there were also markets we felt like we'd do really great in, and it would be difficult and cost are very expensive. So we went to a digital model using a cloud kitchen that's in test for us right now. But even more exciting is a retail to-go unit that for us is about 900 square feet. And so we opened the first one outside of the University of Maryland in College Park, Maryland, and it's going really great. We feel like for our brand, that's a great opportunity to be part of a toolbox, a portfolio of formats that someone can use in a market. We don't want to go into markets and have 2,900 square foot locations. That would do us a disservice. So mixing it up and giving our franchise operators the choice, so we are being opportunistic on the spaces that become available. The third component is special venues. Everyone likes to get in airports, but airports are very hard to get in. We're actually getting our first on-premise at a very large university in Michigan. Hopefully we're going to ink that deal pretty soon. You all better not be running over there talking to them. But so that's our special venue format that, again, it gives us a very small space with communal seating. So it brings down the cost of occupancy, development, and still leverages the acceleration of our off-premise business. So, so far, so good.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for that. Go ahead, please.
I was going to say one thing, that I think is difficult for us, and we've mentioned, using data as it relates to real estate or, thinking about the format size. I think at its best, data is giving you a view of the road behind you. And there's still going to be, room for us, or the necessity for us to look ahead and project and say, all right, is this trend going to continue? Is America, at what point do we stop being the hospitality industry? At what point does, it not matter that we have, places where people can gather? How important is that to the brand? If we're looking from a real estate perspective and we're looking at, hey, do we have these new formats, and the only thing I have to judge my real estate is based on the performance of the old format that I'm not building anymore. There is still a component where strong business judgment and some predictability needs to come into play. And I think that's where, kind of the art of data as a superpower intersects with the science, that you can't just sort of blindly go, you'll get a number. on a lot of these things, but you have to inform it with business judgment and your sense of, what is the brand need to be as it goes forward. And that's, I think that's part of the tricky part of this.
Yeah, that's great. I think one of my mentors said to me, be data informed, not data driven, which I'm still trying to figure out what that actually means. But it's a nice mantra, at least hold it in your head and try and navigate the future. Okay, we're about 10 minutes away. I would love to open it up for audience questions. Yes, we got one right here in the white t-shirt, please. Yes.
Hey, I'm Ethan with Hang. I have a question for you, Doug, around segmentation. So something I sort of believe is that segmentation is going to just become obsolete. I think that, like a while ago, you can make sort of rough cuts around trying to, target certain ads to certain demographics or types of people. And we've gotten better at that to the point now where I can go on Instagram and I see something personalized for me. But I think that marketing within loyalty especially is sort of lagging right now. And that, segmentation is sort of like rough cut heuristics, but the way I see this evolving through data is into like true personalization at the individual level, to where you don't actually need to like push out a certain promotion to a segment, and instead you sort of like set an objective and you let the system with all this data behind it to personalize the offers to individuals. So first off is like, what are your thoughts generally on the direction of segmentation and really not being like necessary in its current state? And secondly is, what do you need to be able to see from a system like that to trust it? I feel like trust is going to be one of the hardest things for something that is so ML reliant, that's sort of like a black box for the logic.
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I think if you think about it, depends on how you're conceiving of segmentation. So back in the old days, segmentation was, hey, we've got 5 campaigns. We're trying to target somebody based on some sort of lifestyle profile or some sort of metric we have, and let's create a campaign for this, and this, and figure out which bucket they fall into, and we'll target that campaign, whether it's on email or some other direct place, right? We'll target it that way. Sometimes segmentation for us looks like geographically, right? And so a lot of the small brands here, they'll talk about, I think we had connected TV yesterday come across, and other geo-targeted ways that we can reach people in a certain geography. This should become a superpower for small brands versus big brands. It's a huge equalizer of how I can be on TV at the same level Chipotle can be on TV, right? So segmentation comes in many different formats, and I would argue that we probably all have been using segmentation if you use something like a lookalike audience. That the machine learning at some point is going to place media in a way that is going to be segmented, is going to be personalized. We can set up some certain rules, maybe set up some databases, but it's the most powerful way we have, a massive library of, whether it's our menu or, offers or messages, and then, the analytics are matching message to consumer in a way that happens behind the scenes so that we don't have to try to power, I got 28 campaigns with 35 segments going right now, right? So we have to find a way to empower the system to do it for us, because we're limited. Like I said, I've got a mighty team of 5. Right? We're limited in our ability to do that. And so we have to find a way to have the tools do it for us once we, have the strategy in place.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're overplaying the segmentation and the technology. For us, it's how do we build more direct relationships that we can engage our customer. While you're talking about a loyalty that's most likely an app with rewards, your segmentation, we find that our email programs, our text programs are growing as fast as those loyalty programs. So for us, it's how does that guest want to, or customer want to, and how do they want to talk to us, right? How do they want to communicate? How do they want to engage with the brand? While you're trying to figure out segmentation, okay, we're going out there and getting more emails, more text messages along with the text. So I would just say, yes, follow that technology where it's going, but there's people who don't want it. There's people who don't want an app. It's too cumbersome.
Right.
Give me a text. Give me an email. I had something really recently happen to me that was mind-boggling. We were looking at all the channels that we were getting business, and there was phone calls into our stores. Okay, and I thought, we'd probably be about 2%, 1%. Who calls? Now, this is coming from a guy who does call when I'm to go, okay? It was 9.5%. It was 9.5%. So I started looking at all our restaurants and realized the ones who aren't hitting 9%, they're not answering their phones, right? So there's 10% of the people still picking up the phone, calling us. So engage with your customers. They want to engage with you, and then figure out the segment. There's so many things you can do. And for us, we're just trying to keep up with some of that. And we have a lot more effectiveness happening and moving in the needles that way than going so granular.
Yeah.
Yeah, just one follow-up on that. You know, when we're talking about segmentation, what we just talked about, what I talked about earlier, is from the lens of us out, right? But what I would encourage you to think about, way more segmentation now is starting to happen, you know, where people are choosing to engage with the message. So if you think about the example we had yesterday of TikTok, right? So people, you know, our customers are out there putting things on TikTok, and other people are choosing to see it based on what their preference is. Like, we're out of the loop, right? So you have these messages that are out there, that are shared out there, and you're almost getting consumer to consumer connection segmentation because of how people are choosing to interact with the media. So, you know, segmentation, there's part of it you control, there's part of it you don't control. And so just sort of recognizing that there's another dynamic is how is consumers choosing to segment themselves.
Yeah. Okay, we have about 4 minutes left. I do have one final question for the audience that I want to ask first, and then if we have time after that, hopefully y'all can stick around and answer, because we do have a couple of hands raised here, if that's okay. Assuming you will never see any of these people ever again, and never talk to them again, what is one piece of advice you want to leave with them about data?
I'll just say curiosity, because curiosity is key, because there is a lot of data. You have to ask questions all the time. You have to stay informed of what's going on. And in my role, my job is to always be curious about the data, because it's so important that we understand the guest behavior, but also understanding what is going on with our team members in our restaurants as well, and making sure we really have a good handle, because things are changing, and our guests are 75,000 a year, so economic pressure, so we have to make sure we're delivering that value each and every time from the experience and through what we're offering.
Doug?
I would just say beware of the tyranny of the interesting and not actionable.
Told you he was the curmudgeon on the panel. But
My advice would be harness the data and start studying the data and build your insights over one specific area or component, master it before you move on to the next component. But I think gaining experience and insights from the data takes a lot of time, a lot of studying, a lot of watching, and then things start to become real clear as you do that.
great. Yaron?
Yeah, I would just say that, you know, the data is part of an overall decision-making process, and it should be a piece of it. And it can't be the end-all be-all, but it has to be part of the process you have internally of making decisions on how you move forward with your company. So it's important, but you can get in the weeds so deep where you kind of lose sight of what you're trying to accomplish, which ultimately is trying to build sales, right? So if the data doesn't help you get to a point to build sales, and all of this is kind of a waste of time. So if you got to have actionable things you can take action on that actually help build sales, drive guest satisfaction, drive unit volume sales up, and then, you know, hopefully build a business. So.
Excellent. That's great. I think we can leave it there. Yeah? Let's wrap up. Cool. Thank you. Panelists will stick around for additional questions. Thank you, everybody.